Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography Walking Talking Mock, and this is on the Rivers Fieldwork Part 1, designed to help you improve your reading and answering of exam questions to give you the best chances of success. Now, as always, please read through the information on how to use this video, pause it if you need to, so you can make the most use of your time. Before we start to look at the exam questions, we're just going to have a quick recap on what we did in the fieldwork. The fieldwork questions will be based around 2 of the 6 main areas. The main areas are designing the questions and fieldwork processes, so how rivers change, impacts on humans, the range of different data collection techniques, so you've got to know what the key terms, primary, secondary, qualitative, quantitative, random, stratified and systematic sampling are. You also need to remember and understand how you processed and presented the data using tables, mathematic formulas, pictures, charts, graphs and diagrams. You need to remember how you analysed the data and what you found, so how you described and explained your graphs and results. You also need to know what were the main conclusions and summaries from your fieldwork, and then how to evaluate all of the above sections. So it's really important that you are fully conversant and you understand exactly what you did on the field works for both rivers and for cities. So paper 3, the investigations and UK challenges, you will have optional questions, and it's very important you read the information so you answer the correct questions. In section A, you'll only have to answer one question from question 1 or 2. Now you'll see question 1 is about rivers, question 2 is about coasts. We've only done rivers, so you will answer question 1. Also, read the instructions on how to mark an X in a box, not a tick, not a circle. Make sure you do that correct or you won't be credited with the marks. And make sure that you do put an X whether you're doing question 1 or question 2, so you need to make sure you're putting an X in question 1. So question 1 is investigating physical environments, rivers. A group of students was collecting data along the length of a river as part of an investigation into changes in a river channel. The students had planned to use a flow meter to measure the velocity of the river, but one of their chosen sites was too shallow. State one way they could adapt their technique. So all you need to say here is just give a very brief statement to say if they can't use the flow meter to measure the speed of the water, what else could they do? It's only 1 mark, so it's a very basic answer. So what way could they adapt their technique or change what they did to measure the velocity of water? Okay, have a go now. Okay, the next question, give one piece of equipment other than a flow meter they would need to use to investigate river discharge. So, give one piece of equipment, state, that's all you need to do. So just a very simple statement here, other than a flow meter, so you can't base it on that they would need to use to investigate river discharge. So when you're working out river discharge, you have to work out the width by the depth by the velocity. So give one piece of equipment you could use to measure any of that. So have a go at that now. Now, the next question, study figure 1A in the resource booklet. It shows a sketch of sites used to collect river data. Explain one reason why the students chose a stratified sampling approach. So if we look at the resource, we can see here figure 1A and we can see the river and the different sites on here. Now hopefully you remember what stratified is, and this is using a sampling method where you pick points where there is an obvious change. So if you look through here, what is the obvious change? Well, they're all measuring it after more streams have joined the main river channel. So if we go back, explain one reason why the students chose a stratified sampling approach. So explain is you need to be using connectives. This means that, this leads to, because. but you only give one reason. But remember, it's worth 3 marks here, so you need to develop the statement. So it's probably an idea to actually describe what they've done. So stratified is where they've measured it after this, and then say why they have done that. So have a go at that. 3 minutes, off you go now. So looking at the mark scheme, what other or how could they adapt their technique? It could be use a float, ping pong ball called orange stick, so you could measure how quickly something travels down the river. Or if you know about flow meters, you could use one with a smaller impeller. That's the thing that rotates round. Any other equipment you could use to measure discharge, tape measure, ruler, chain, stopwatch, whatever it is that you wanted to use there. Now for the next one, the stratified sampling technique. So you can see here, they've given a brief identification or description of what they can see, what the student did, and then the connectives to show that they're linking it together. So the sampling points are just below the confluences where the rivers joined. Therefore this, so this is the connective, is where you would expect a change in the discharge of river, so that sampling between confluences is unlikely to show change in discharge. So it's showing here that if you're measuring on the same stretch of river and there's nothing new being added to it, it's going to stay the same. So that would be a reason why you'd use a stratified approach. Obviously we have the other answer here, so check through yours, mark it, and then add any corrections if you need to. Now we need to study figure 1b in the resource booklet. So always worth having a look before you look at the questions, and we can see it's a table of river data collected by a geography student. We can see we've got the different sites which relate to the sites in figure 1a, and we've got the width, depth, the cross-sectional area, velocity, and the discharge. And we can see we've got the measurements in there. So, but there is a box missing here. So what we need to look at is look at the question, which of the following are the correct units for the cross-sectional area in figure 1b? So we have to look, you've got meters squared, you've got meters cubed, centimeters squared, millimeters squared. And we're talking about cross-sectional area. So if we were talking about volume, it'd be cubed, but we're not, we're talking about area, so we can miss this one out. And then if we look at what data we've got here, we've got width in meters, so that should then give you the simple answer. The next question, calculate the mean and median depth of the river. So very simple math skills here. The mean being the average, so adding them all up and dividing them by the number, and then the median is the middle value when you rank them together. So again, have a quick look at the resource there. So we've got the depth, we need to add those all up, divide them by 5 to give us the mean, and then rank them with the middle number for the median. So have a go at that now and write your answer in. Quickly looking at the answers then, so for the units of area, it should have been A, meters squared, and the values of the mean depth and the median depth there. So looking to the next question, use figure 1b. Explain one reason why a student might choose to use the results from the median rather than the mean. Look at the table again, and we can see if we look at the depth, we can see that from site 1 in the upper course, moving down the course of the river, we can see there's a general pattern, but site 4 or site 5 could be an anomaly. So it's really going back to sort of maths and science, and when you're doing experiments, what are the benefits of using the median rather than the mean? The problem with using the mean is that if you do get anomalies, then this will obviously sway your results for the mean. Whereas the median, because it's ranked and you're taking the middle number, it is less likely to include the results of any anomalies that you might get at the extreme ends. So have a go at that answer now. And looking for the answers that you could have given here then. So it says here that site 5 is an outlier, which means using the median ignores the influence of it. the median uses a rank of data. So you can see these are just general statements on the quality of using different statistical techniques. Okay, but it's applying your knowledge and understanding to the data that you've been given. And that's something that you'll be asked to do a lot in this exam, is being given data, being given resources, and you have to apply your understanding to it. Now we're looking at the final 8-mark question. You have studied a river as part of your fieldwork. Evaluate the reliability of your conclusions. Now we'll go on to discuss what evaluate and reliability means in a moment, but before we do that, we're just going to have a quick look at the mark scheme. Remember that the 8 markers are level marked rather than point marked. So therefore, it's about applying your understanding to the question. It's giving a well-balanced, well-developed argument that is giving evidence throughout, and that you are addressing the command word, and in this term that is evaluate. And it's making sure that for these fieldwork ones that you are giving specific fieldwork findings in a clear way using geographical terminology. So what do evaluate and reliability mean here? Well, reliability relates to the way that you collected the data, and were the techniques that you used, did they give results that could be repeated? Would those results give you a really good answer that would be reliable, that would be effective, and allow you to make good conclusions? Evaluate means to look at the good and bad points of it and possibly suggest improvements. And it's really important that you need to give evidence of the techniques you used and some of your results here. So, as we look at it, what we can say, remember, it's a really good idea to have good structure for these. So to have a basic introduction to go through the key terms, what does reliability mean? And then have separate paragraphs with a couple of lines left in between each one. So it shows the clear paragraphs, but also allows you to add extra information later if you need to. So one thing that you did was measuring the changes in river depth and width, which we used a tape measure to get the width, which was accurate, but sometimes difficult to get to the edge of the river. And the depth we measured every 25 centimeters, which was accurate to show the changes and the average depth, but sometimes individual rocks could affect the measurement. So there we're saying the good and the bad points of it. We're using evidence, we're using stuff that you actually did and giving evidence for it. We then could talk about the velocity, and we could talk about how we repeated it 5 times to increase the reliability, and how to evaluate it, how that helped us get good results for our conclusions. We can also talk about the sampling technique if we wanted to as well. So we could say why we did that and why we justified it, and that would allow us to make valid conclusions. You could also have talked about sediment size, angularity, river features and observations. And when we talked about the conclusions, you need to talk about, well, our results showed us that the rivers got faster, deeper, wider, or sediment changed, which matched with the Bradshaw model. So we've got a whole range of different areas, but giving evidence of the things that we did and how that affected reliability. Having a look at the question then, so evaluate the reliability of your conclusions. So remember, clear paragraphs, clear structure, that's worth 8 marks, so you've probably got between 8 and 10 minutes maximum to do this. So have a go now. So when we look at the mark scheme, what we can now see then. Okay, so as we've said, reliability is about making judgments on how close your conclusions are to the actual changes that you can see. Did they give results? Were they judgments about the problems of the operator, things you may have done wrong or the equipment used? But don't try and put too many problems on it, otherwise it will make it look like your fieldwork wasn't any good. And you also need to talk about, there's evidence of your own fieldwork conclusions linked to the data. So what did you actually find? So it's not just about the quality of the methods that you used to collect it, but it's also what you actually found, and you need to give evidence for that. So there we go. That was Rivers Fieldwork. I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much for watching. Watch other videos in the series to help you with your exams. Good luck and thanks a lot. Bye.